Hello there, DrWho Doctor Who fans. My name is Rex Dewis, and I am one of the voiceovers in the DrWho Doctor Who adventures. My first story was The Time Assassin, where I played Lord President Carradine, and I think after that was Domination of the Daleks, where I did the Dalek voices. Not my best voices, because I unfortunately had a double ear infection, both of them, and I couldn't really hear properly what I was doing, and also my computer, with all the Dalek voices that I'd made, all the settings I'd made to process the voices, it died literally a few days before I had to record them. I also did, let me see now, A Fear of the Fair. I was a celestial toy maker in that. Rising of the Beast, I was the Tetraps in that. And I was also there's some sort of the bad guy, the American-y sounding one, and I actually had I think I had an infection in my throat or something at the time. I had like a bad nasty cold, and I had my voice was very, very hoarse, and so I decided I would use that for the character. So he sounds quite hoarse and everything, which I quite liked because I wanted him to sound quite different from other characters that I played. The Human Nexus, I was the Botchine in that one. So that was fun, making up a Slovene modulation. Then it was the Dalek Trap. Then after that, Revenge of the Time Lord. Now I think I was the Lord President again in that. I think I've played him 3 or 4 times now. Now the first time I played him, I did actually modulate my voice in the computer very slightly. Well, I pitch shifted it, so I made it sound slightly deeper in the computer. But after that, I just started performing him in a slightly deeper voice. Who was I imitating? I like to imitate someone when I do these performances, so I think I was imitating, a friend of mine said it was Leonard Sachs in that one, being one of the old series, Lord Presidents. Then we have, oh yes, we've got Fourth Night, which was the Halloween special. Now in that one, I'm the Fourth Doctor, as Brendan's mentioned already, and I practiced him for many years before I got to the point where I felt happy with the voice and would be willing to do it for other people. It's not perfect. No one's ever going to do a perfect Tom Baker voice, but I'm pretty pleased with it. I think I've kind of got the delivery that he does down quite well, if not quite the tone. He's a different, my Tom Baker's it's a different performance to the one that you're perhaps used to from, say, John Coleshaw. He does a very good Tom Baker. He's kind of like the essence of Tom Baker, whereas I'm trying very hard to be the Fourth Doctor. When I do it, I do mine in a different way to him. And I did actually meet John Coleshaw recently, but I didn't get a chance to do my Tom Baker voice. It might have been rude, I don't know. It certainly would have been embarrassing, so perhaps it's just as well I didn't try. I was also the voice of the Mandragora Helix, or the Helix egg or sphere, whatever it was. Now, that was interesting. I really like to do the voices as true to the classic ones as possible, but the script had been written with a lot of emotion in the voice. The voice said a lot of snappy things, very emotional things. The original voice on TV, it just kind of droned like that. And I really wanted it to sound like the original, but there was lines that just couldn't be delivered without emotion. So I said to Brendan, would it be right if I actually gave it 2 voices? One for the emotional words that would kind of hiss and whisper nasty things, you know, and then the drony sort of TV voice. And as always, he just kind of left it in my hands and kind of says, yes, go for it, do whatever. So of course that meant more work for me, because I then had to go and record all the drony voice lines, process them, add echo effects and all that kind of stuff, and then I had to do the hissy voices and then mix them in. And in some places they said the same line and they kind of whispered. 3.1 new series, Prediction of the Seer. I'm the Lord President again in that one, and then for that one I have a friend who's a voiceover as well. Where he used to do like the animation dubs in Portugal of anime, and so he is the Castellan in that one. God of War is next. I haven't recorded my part in God of War yet, because episode 3, Cyberspace, I was so eager to do the Cybermen in that one, so I've actually skipped God of War, but I'll go back and do that. God of War, that's a bit of confusion there, the War Chief or the Warlord. The character is called the Warlord in the story, but I think in the War Games he was called the War Chief. and the Warlord was a different character. So I wasn't sure which were the two actors to imitate. But then I realised, oh, he's regenerated, it doesn't really matter which of the two actors I do. So I'm not sure which voice I'm going to do, but I'll just muck around and see what I come up with, and might just make a completely new voice for that one. And then, yeah, Cyberspace. Now that was really cool. I've been dying to do the Cybermen, because I think when I signed on with the Time Assassin, they'd just done a Cyberman story with 60 Cybermen, and I was gutted because I really wanted to do Cybermen. And I think I said at one point to Brendan, if you ever do 80 Cybermen, please, 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 can I do them? So I do the Cyber Leader, a sort of standard trooper, and then the Controller. The Controller, I had to make a special new setting for that one, because I'd never done a Controller before, and in fact I had to watch clips from Attack of the Cybermen before I did it. I'm very happy with the voice effect, the modulation I did, and I'm like 50% happy with the voice, because I think I got elements of his voice, but then I used it for the whole performance. So this is an actor, always being overcritical, but I think if I do him again, I will try and get a bit more emotion into his voice in places, because he had really long speeches and it would have just made him more interesting. But I'm still overall quite happy with that. So I think I'd quite like to just show on the computer in another clip how I do the voices and how I do the modulation and everything. Before I do that, I will say, when it comes to doing Dalek voices, everyone thinks it's all about the computer part of it, the effect, and it's really not. It's actually, to get a good Dalek, and the same as Cybermen, you have to do the voice like the actors did in the original show, and you're not doing the voice of the monster as treated with effects. You actually have to imitate the voice of the actor before it's treated, and obviously you're not going to hear that. You hear the treated voice in the finished product. So if I'm doing a 60s Dalek, I will imitate David Graham, who's Brains and Thunderbirds. He also did Daleks, so I imitate his Daleks. If I'm doing 70s, it's Roy Skelton. So I actually imitate the voice of Roy Skelton. Now he did the voice of Zippy. So he'll be my idea is best, George, something like that. He kind of does this funny voice, quiet, George, he'll be doing these silly, voices. So he does that voice again. The Zippy voice is what he uses for his Daleks. That's the voice he uses. If you can imitate Roy Skelton doing the Zippy voice and then do all the ranting, that's wicked. It comes out really good when you put the effect over. Even if the effect is rubbish, it still sounds more like a Dalek than a lot of people on YouTube. People want to do Dalek voices, and I'll be honest, most of them are fairly poor. They're kind of rubbish, because it's really hard to get the Dalek voices right. With the modulation, I was quite pleased with the settings I came up with, because I managed to get Destiny-style Daleks, as well as some of the sort of Resurrection and others. I lost my previous Dalek settings. I'd done a whole bunch of 60s, 70s ones, so the Hartnell and Pertwee-style ones, well, one of the Pertwee-style ones, I kind of lost those settings, but I think I've just found them again now. When I say lost them, when you reinstall the program, the plugin, it's not even a plugin, it's like a user-created setting. I have to make them all myself by ear, by sound. So there's no numbers I just read off a card and go, okay, that's Dalek voice. I had to just painstakingly go through tweaking and changing the settings here and there, and it's actually taken me several years to get them to a point where I'm happy. It's 2004 was when I started. With my first Dalek voices. So yeah, there's a couple Planet of the Daleks. I do a really good Planet of the Daleks ones, but I'd lost the setting, but now I think I've found it again. So hopefully we get to do Daleks again, and maybe I'll try some different voices. I did some Remembrance ones as well, didn't I? You may not be able to tell clearly in that one. I think they only have 1 or 2 lines, but I threw a bit of almost every Dalek of the 70s and 80s, or second half of the 70s and the 80s, into that one. The Celestial Toymaker was interesting. I had to do 2 voice effects for him, where he's like a disembodied voice, and then the other one, when he appears as that blue kind of figure with his arms out, all kind of glowing and everything, I changed the effect. I also came up with a sort of creepy background atmosphere. Now Brendan didn't ask for that, but I like to give him some extras, and if he wants to use them, then great. And I was well pleased that he actually did use that. It has sort of the sound of children singing nursery rhymes and a woman moaning and the sounds of fire. It was just kind of really horrid, and I wanted that because I wanted the place that he goes to be horrible. And then there's a few other stories that I've done, kind of random effects. I added I actually recorded the sound of a match being struck in Fourth Night for when Tom Baker lights his torch. Just silly things like that, and I throw a few of those effects in and send them off to Brendan. Are there any voices I'd quite like to do? I'd quite like to do K9, but Brendan does K9. But I'm kind of working on my own little sort of Tom Baker story. I wrote it, most of it, over a year ago now, and I'm kind of getting close to. I've recorded a lot of it, but I'm going to re-record it because I wasn't happy with the recordings. And I do a K9 in that one, so at least I get to fulfil that that fantasy, because I like doing the K9 voice. And then Ice Warriors, quite keen to do those. Oh, and Sontarans, I'd really like to do the Sontarans. I did actually email Big Finish about doing Sontarans, because I've actually done a Big Finish. I had a small part in one of the Bernice plays, and I've been knocking on their door for several years now, but no luck so far, and I was really annoyed that I didn't get to send an audition for the Sontarans, because they wanted Lynx, and Lynx is my favourite. He's my hero, Sontaran, he's the best. And he's the one that I practice, so if I ever get to do Sontarans, that would be really good. They've been in this series already, I think, in Series 1, but again, that was a monster I missed. They did Sea Devils as well, I missed those. Kind of do quite a good Sea Devil, kind of have a good Sea Devil effect. So, yeah, the monsters are my favourite things to do, and hopefully, and then if we get the new figures, the new character options ones, perhaps we'll get some of the Doctors. I would quite like to do a 6th Doctor. Just a few lines would be really cool, because I kind of do this sort of sneery, you know, the Colin Baker voice when he's kind of sneering and all like, you know, haughty and proud and being mean to Perry. That kind of Colin Baker. I quite like doing him, so he'd be fun if he popped up for a cameo. Who knows? So I don't know how long this has gone on for. I've already reached my limit already, but I am going to quickly record just a shot of the laptop, and hopefully you can see on the screen me editing some of the sound, just to show you me overlaying some effects and things like that.